So we'll look at the future tense. We have already seen how the present tense works, and also the imperfect and the aorist tense. Those are your two tenses for the past. Now the future is a little bit more straightforward, in as much as it's really only one way to represent the future tense in Greek. And really in English when we talk about it. So our grammar really, our grammar check is quite straightforward. And maybe just look at the um, sheet that we had before. Here we are, just to remind you of the kind of tenses that we use. So the present, we've got I am teaching or I teach, which is either a continuous repeated action, this I am teaching, it's a process, or I teach Greek, which is just undefined in the present. And we've looked at the past and we thought how that and saw how that in the past, when we could say I was teaching Greek, which again has that sort of continuous or repeated action in the past, that was the imperfect tense in Greek. And then the other past tense is I taught Greek, which is undefined. In most cases, it's the like default tense just to describe things that have taken place. It does have, as part of it, a one-time action kind of idea, but that's not the only aspect of it. It's really better to consider it just as undefined. So I taught Greek doesn't say anything about how much I did or what, it just happened in the past. And so you're just making reference to a past event. And so that's the aorist tense. We have the imperfect and aorist tense. And then in the future, we would just use the word will, I will. I will teach Greek. And so we add in an extra word, which is often what we like to do. We use auxiliary verbs in English in order to decide whether something is happening now or in the past or in the future. So it's quite simple, undefined action, I will teach Greek. And that's really how we see future tense in Greek. So let's go and have a look at the future tense, shall we? As before, there is a stem to our verb, and then there is an ending. And the good thing about this is that the ending for the future tense is identical to the present tense, and the stem is pretty much identical. All that happens is that there is a sigma, which is added exactly in the same way that in the aorist tense. So if you remember with the aorist tense, we had a sigma that was added, although there were different endings. So the same thing's going to happen for the future. So here we could say that our stem, we might add our sigma to our stem here. So we've got for luo, which is to untie, our stem is going to be lu with a sigma added to it, which is going to give us its future. And then we have an ending, which is, in our case, they're going to be exactly the same endings for the present. So luso is going to be I will untie. And luo, without the sigma, is I am untying, okay, or I untie, which is just in the present. And these are all the same, okay, so we have luces and then luce. Actually, we'll just get them down as we go. And then luce, which is for the third person singular, and then lusomen. And lucete. And then we have lususin. So that should be a little bit more straightforward. We're just going to add a sigma to our stem, and that's fine, okay. And it's great if the stem is like we have with luo. And if you remember from the aorist how it works with an epsilon omega verb, so we have the special ones, the sort of different endings there. And if you take the stem with the epsilon, then what happens is that lengthens like it did with the aorist. And so here we'll just kind of move into this one. So for fill A, and then we have the, excuse me, then the sigma. So the sigma is still going to be added, but because there's a sigma now in between the lengthening of that epsilon to an eta, so the e has just become a long e, then it does, and the sigma is in between, it doesn't affect the ending. So the endings are actually going to be the same as the ones above, whereas you might remember in the present that there were some variants. There was an extra upsilon in the third person plural. We'll come to that in just a moment. So this will go to omega. So we're going to have philoso, which is I will love, and then obviously the endings are going to be exactly as we have for the for luo. And these ones, just write these ones out. So they are, as you might expect there for that. And then when you get to the plural, still the same idea, but you'll remember from the present tense, hopefully, that when we combined the epsilon omega verb with the ending, we ended with an omicron and an upsilon, didn't we? We had those two letters in there. Well, we're not going to have that this time because the sigma is in between. So we just have philosomen. Okay, and then the same thing is going to happen with this one, where we ended up with an extra iota, and therefore here we're just going to end up with the ending with as it would be for luo. And then finally okay, so hopefully that doesn't feel quite as difficult perhaps as being able to do the imperfect or the aorist. We're adding in a sigma, and the eta, the epsilon will lengthen to an eta where necessary, and then it's just the same endings in both of those. Now, we still have exactly the same issues that we had with the aorist. When the ending of the stem, the end of a stem of a verb, is one of the consonants that combines with the sigma. And just to draw your attention to this bit again, that if your verb stem ends with a pi, a beta, or phi, then when you add the sigma to it, it turns into psi. Okay, psi. So you're going to end up with a bit of a change, and it's usually easy to see actually when you see these in the words. You'll kind of, there'll be a something for you to take note of that you think, oh yes, I know that's either talking about a future tense or an aorist tense, because you've got this change towards the end. Then there's the next group, which is tau, delta, theta, and zeta. And if you add the sigma with to make the future tense, then that just sort of takes over, and that these drop out, these letters, these dentals drop out, and you end up with just the sigma. And then you've got the third group, which is the gutturals, and you've got kappa, gamma, chi, and you've got your double sigma. And if you add a sigma to that, you end up with xi. Now we did a bit of that last time when we did the aorist, and I thought it'd be good just to remind ourselves, if we were to take these verbs and see if we can work out what goes on with the endings for them. So if you take anoigo, which means to open, so I'll just do the first one, and then you can have a little go at trying to do them to remind yourself, and then maybe a bit of translation. So anoigo, so we have a gamma ending in our stem. If we take off the omega, obviously that's the ending. then here we are going to replace it with the added sigma. If we want to do the future tense, then for the future tense, we don't need anything on the front, which we would if we were doing the aorist. Okay, so we're going to change the gamma to C. So we're going to have anoixo. Okay, and then I just do one more with baptizo. So here we have a dental, so we've got the zeta at the end, and therefore if we want to make the future of that, which is to baptize, I will baptize, then we would have bap, and then here we're going to replace it with the sigma because the zeta plus the sigma in the future, so we're going to have baptizo. And that's how we distinguish between whether we're looking at I am baptizing, which is the starting word, with I will baptize, and it's actually only distinguished by the change there from the zeta to a sigma. Okay, so maybe using a little table there, perhaps you'd like to just have a go at doing questions 3 to 10, see if you can turn those into the endings they need. There is one you just need to pay attention to, which we'll come to when we look at them. And if you've done those, then you might want to have a look at seeing if you can just translate the future tenses with different endings from questions 1 to 10. Hopefully they are all written as they should be. Just translate them using whether they're the first person, second person, third person, singular or plural. Okay, so give that a go, and then we'll have a look in just a moment.